Okay, I want everyone to go ahead and make sure you've downloaded the lecture files for this section. And I want you to open up the health.png, and you should be looking at the exact same screen that I'm looking at. This is simply a screenshot that I took from my iPhone 6 Plus. Please do not judge me based on my activity or lack thereof. I know it's pretty bad. But let's go ahead and take a look around. This is the app screen that we're going to be recreating. Obviously, it's a little more technical. It's a little more advanced than what we've designed thus far. We see we have the interesting like flights climbed tracker. So we're gonna have some fun creating this and the shadow under it, or the what looks to be a gradient under it. And from our iOS guidelines section, we do know everything on this screen now. We know our status bar. We know that this is called segmented control. We know this is our tab bar down here. So we're familiar with iOS and iOS 8. And let's go ahead and begin creating this screen. Now we're going to start by unlocking this, and we're going to try not to use this layer at all. I'd like to have it there as a reference just so we can click back every once in a while, make sure things look right, make sure we have the right colors. But other than that, we're pretty much going to be designing this screen from nada. So I want you to just go ahead and double click the lockdown here, and let's rename this layer reference. Okay, and let's go ahead and zoom in and just poke around really quickly before we start doing this. And I'm just going to zoom into 100%. So we'll notice we have like a white background here, and then we have these three modules that you can actually select within the Health app what you want to show on your dashboard. And I just want to zoom in even further. We'll notice we have a little like gray line here, or a gray stroke, and the background white color here is not the same background color as it is at the top. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward and begin designing this top section, which is the section we're going to be starting with. Okay, let's go ahead and do some of the preliminary styling for this screen. And I'm going to go ahead and just hide this reference layer, and we're going to start working and creating our own layers. Let's start with just giving this an entire white background. So I'm just going to get a layer new. We'll create a new layer, and I'm just going to call this BG. Okay, and I'm going to use my rectangle marquee tool, and I usually just like to fill a color by dragging this over the entire canvas and then selecting my foreground color as white, and we're just going to fill this color in with that white. Alright, and then we have that background color. I'm going to make sure, drag this reference layer to the top, make sure that stays on the top, so when we do need to look at it, we can actually see it. So first thing we need to do is create this top bar separation where we have our title and then our segmented control. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to zoom in, Control or Command plus, and I want to zoom in, scroll to the top so I can see a bit better. I'm going to zoom in once more. Let's zoom back out, actually, stay at 100%. And we're going to grab our rectangular marquee tool, and I want to do this because I want to measure this out. So we're going to make sure that we drag this from anywhere outside and just start dragging all the way down. And I want to go down to 309 or 310 pixels. So there's 310 pixels. Now I say 309 pixels or 310 pixels because that gray line is that far down. So if I did 309 pixels, the gray line needs to go on the outside or the bottom side, and 310 pixels, we need to put the gray line on top of this marching ant section. So let's just go ahead. We're going to zoom in, and actually we can zoom in a little bit. We don't really need to, because we're going to come down here to our shape tool, and we're just going to grab the line tool. Now with the line tool selected, we need to make sure that everything's set up. So make sure that your weight is 1 pixel, which is the size of that line. And a quick reference really quickly, if we zoom in all the way in on this document to 3200, which is as far as you can zoom in, and I scroll up and find that gray line, well, I'm clearly can see that this is 1 pixel because it's one little square. So if you ever want to figure out exactly how big something is and get really pixel perfect with your design, well, go ahead, zoom into 3200%, which is the max here, and you can tell literally. So I'm just going to zoom back out, don't want to be that close. I'm going to hide this reference layer, and I'm just going to use my line tool, make sure the weight is at 1 pixel and that I'm drawing a shape. So select shape, and let's change this fill color. And with the fill selected, we can come over here to our color picker, and I'm just going to type this out. And our color is just B2, 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 and it's this light but yet somewhat dark gray color. So let's go ahead and do that. And without further ado, I'm just going to come down here. It doesn't matter because we can change it in a second. And while holding shift to make sure it's a straight line, I'm just going to drag this all the way through the canvas and make sure that we're all the way there. So there, I have my gray shape. Now I want to make sure that I am right on where it needs to be, and it is. So I dragged this down to 310. I dragged my rectangular marquee down to 310, so I needed to make sure that this was sitting just on top of these marching ants, these dotted lines, and it is. So that line's perfect, and we have now done that. Now really quickly, what I want to do is fill this top color in with something a little darker. We'll do a light gray for now so we can separate the white background below from the top section here. And to do that, instead of just drawing another rectangle and making sure we're above this, we know that this needs to contract by 1 pixel so we can fill in this top layer. So let's just go up here to select, and we're going to modify and select contract. Now I want to contract this by 1 pixel and select OK. There we go. Now you can see that we are now on top of this gray line as opposed to the bottom. And from here we can just zoom out. I'm going to zoom back out a ways. Okay, I'll go back into 100%. And we have the selection we need, so let's just create a new layer really quickly. I'm just going to hit Control or Command Shift N to create a new layer. And let's call this Top BG. Alrighty, and I'm just going to fill this in with a nice gray color. And let's grab our color picker, our foreground color, and let's just get something rare, very subtle. I'm going to do an F8, F8, F8. You know, just drag something really light for now, just so when we fill this like this, we can see that subtle difference now. And we've thus now created this little distinction between the top and the bottom. And if I hit Control or Command D to deselect, we can see we have that nice little line running down at the bottom with that gray stroke. So lastly, we're not going to recreate the status bar. We've already done that. We know how to do that. And most importantly, we know that we don't need to do that. So we're just going to, let's add the text up here, the dashboard text, and then we'll go on and make the segmented control. I want everyone to grab, go up to view actually, and we're going to select new guide. Okay, and I just want to make sure that we go from the left, and we're going to go 494 pixels. So 494 pixels. Okay, and I want y'all to make sure that y'all have a vertical guide selected. And I've already measured this out, so I know that this is exactly where we need the left end of our dashboard text to be touching. So let's go ahead, we're going to grab one more guide. So select new guide, and I want to do 108 pixels. And let's make sure this one is set to horizontal. And this is simply going to give us the intersection where I want my letters to be touching. So right here, this is going to be the top of it. So let's grab our text tool and go ahead and drag this out down here. Okay. And let's make sure that we have Helvetica text selected, the Helvetica font, I'm sorry. And I'm just going to grab Helvetica, not Helvetica New. It seems that Apple has gone back either to like a custom Helvetica that they're using, but back from the Helvetica New. So let's just use Helvetica plain right now. I have the light selected, but that's going to change. And let's just write dashboard. And go figure, we can't see it. Well, that's because it's not black. It's this light gray color. So let's drag this down. Let's just make it black. There we go. Now, the spacing I have -1 is the letter spacing, and the size is 50 pixels, which is actually good. All we need to do is change this to regular, make it a little bit thicker, make sure that this is dragged right here at the top. And if we want to be exact, we can go in, zoom in as much as we want, make sure that this bad boy is touching right up on the edge of these guides, and we can see that we are pixel perfect as far as touching this intersection with the dashboard. So I'm going to zoom out. I'm just going to make sure that the reference layer is at the top, and I want to open that up. And yep, the reference layer, we can see we have that dashboard there. We have the line there, so looking pretty good. Now we can go ahead and make this red segmented control and get into a little bit more fun stuff within this screen. All right, let's take a very quick look at our reference layer. We're going to go ahead and create this segmented control up here at the top. So I'm going to hide this. Now, what I like to do is clear my guides when I start working with new guides. So I'm going to go up to View, select Clear Guides. And there we have a fresh start as far as our guides go. And let's also make sure that we're staying organized. We are getting a little bit sloppy already. And you'll notice the line we named was automatically, the line we made, down here was automatically named to Shape 1. I'm just going to give this a name of gray stroke, and let's just be descriptive with our names. And then I'm also going to select Layer, New, and create a new group. And I'm just going to call this Top Area. Name things whatever you want, as whatever sticks. I usually just whatever comes into my head I name it, as long as it's associated. So I'm just going to make this, drag it to the top, and then make sure I select Dashboard, Top, BG, and Gray Stroke. We're going to leave BG out of this. Let's just drag these, make sure we're right in the center of this top area, and that they drop right in. And now we have that organized into a nice little group. Now we're going to build a group within a group now. So let's go up to Layer, New, Group, and we're going to call this Segmented Control. And we're going to have this inside our header section. So let's just make sure we grab our group, drag it down, and we're just going to drag it below that gray stroke. And we can make sure that, yep, it's inside our top area folder. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and create the segmented control. If we look at our reference, we're going to notice that there's a little space here that runs along the entire screen. And it starts at the segmented control, and then our three modules all happen to be spaced the same. And that space is 12 pixels from the left. And you could actually zoom in and count that. I happen to know that we need to get a 12 pixel space in here between. So let's hide our reference layer, and let's go ahead and create a new guide. And that new guide, we're just going to give it 12 pixels, and we're going to make sure that it is a vertical guide, and select OK. So there, we have that exact space we need to be on the inside of our blue guide. Well, we need to get the guide over here as well, and well, that's pretty easy. We know how big the canvas is. It's 1242 pixels because it's the resolution of the iPhone 6 Plus, 1242 pixels in width. So what do? All we have to do is subtract 12, and that would be 1230. So let's just create a new guide. And we'll give this guide 1230 pixels. So essentially this is going to take this guide starting from the left here at 0 and go 1230 pixels to the right, which is going to be 12 pixels from the end of the canvas. So there we go. We have our exact guides placed. Now I'm going to add one more guide. Let's go to New Guide, and we are going to go 212 pixels from the top, and we'll make sure that this is a horizontal this time because I want to know exactly where to start this. So let's go ahead and select OK, and this is going to be the area that we create our segmented control. The reason I know all these is because I went ahead and measured them, so we didn't have to go in and look back and forth from our reference. I wanted to have that information ready so we can stick to the important stuff, which is creating the interface. So let's grab actually, before we grab any tools, I want to create a new layer, and I'm just going to select Control or Command Shift N, and we'll call this Segmented Control Background. Alright, so we have a new layer within our segmented control, and we are going to now create a shape. Now, let's grab our rounded rectangle tool. And I would like to make sure that my snap is on, so I'm going to come up here to View and select Snap because we're going to try to get as perfect with this as we can. And while holding Command plus or Control plus, I'm going to zoom in. And we're going to start right up here and make sure that this rounded rectangle shape that we're dragging out starts right in this corner. And you'll notice if we put it anywhere near there, it'll automatically touch those guides, which is great. I'm just going to hit Control or Command Z to undo that. And we're going to start back up here, and let's draw this rounded rectangle out. Now, you'll notice my radius is at 100 pixels. So that will not do. So I'm going to change that, and I'm just going to give this a radius of 10 pixels, which is a little bit better. And really quickly, I'm going to open my reference layer and make sure that I have this red color that we need selected. So I'm just going to use my color eyedropper tool, grab that red, which is now moved to the foreground, which is great. And we can go ahead and hide this layer. And let's go back to our rounded rectangle tool and drag this out. So starting right up here in the corner, mine's automatically grabbing that guide, and I'm just going to drag all the way to the right, and we're zoomed in, so it might take a second. And let's make sure that we've found this right guide and that it's touching it. Now don't quite let go yet, because I want to make sure that we have the appropriate height. And the bottom guide would be 290 and our top guide was 212. So let's just give this a height of 78 pixels, and that's the height in the Apple app. So drag up to 78, and there I go. Your width should be about 1218 pixels by 78 pixels in height, and that'll give us the exact size. Now that should be red. Well, it is red. But it's under our top BG, which needs to be at the very bottom of our top area folder. So let's grab the top BG and just drag this below segmented control. There we go. Now Control or Command I, and we're zoomed out. So we have the shape there. Now we need to start making it look a little bit better. Well, we need to decrease and modify this selection. And I want to go back into our reference layer and show you sort of how I figure out how much we need to decrease it by. Well, if we zoom all the way in, and I'm going to go back to 3200 pixels like we've done, we can see that this red line is actually 3 pixels, 1, 2, and 3. But this one's a little bit faded. So what they meant to do and what it's supposed to be is 2 pixels. Actually, nope, 3 pixels, because if we look on the left, we see that there's 3 pixels here. So we're going to give this, make sure that this is 3 pixels all around. So let's zoom back out, and we can go a bit further than that. And let's hide our reference layer. What happened here? Apparently, I changed the background color to blue somewhere. I must have, when I was on the top BG, selected something to change the color, so I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that. I'm not sure what happened. Y'all probably didn't do that, but I just hit Control Z or undo to undo whatever made that blue. I'm not sure what I hit, but I hit something. And let's go back to our segmented control layer and make sure we're on this. And what we're going to do is, while holding Control over this layer thumbnail, the little image here, just hold Control, select it, and it's going to select our red layer. Now, we've done this several times throughout the course, and we need to modify and contract this section by 3 pixels because that's the outline. That's the width of the outline all around. So let's go to Select, Modify, and Contract, and let's just select 3 pixels and select OK. Now, we have this our marching ants have decreased in size by 3 pixels. So theoretically, if we delete the inside of this, we'll have those outside 3 pixels of red remaining, which is exactly what we want. So let's go up to Layer and make sure we rasterize this shape. And the shape is now rasterized by selecting that. And with the layer selected on the segmented control background, select Delete or click Delete. And boom, we have our segmented control outline set up and ready to go. And I'm just going to select Control or Command D, and let's have a look. Looking good. Now we can move on to making this look like the actual segmented control. Apart from the text that we need to put in our segment to control, all we have to do is create an active section and then one red line here to divide up the the last two sections. And of course, I've already measured out our guides for us. So let's just go ahead and we're going to create 3 guides really quickly. So let's go up to New Guide from View. And let's create a vertical guide, make sure that vertical is selected, and we're going to go 312 pixels to the left. And that's going to set up our first. Let's do that once more. Let's go to 621 pixels this time. And I'm only doing this with guides and doing this exactly and telling you exactly so we can, not be guesstimating the whole time, so we know exactly where we're going with this and can get the exact same look as the app that we're recreating. So let's do 621 pixels. All right, and this is the space in between here that we're going to do our active selection. You guys remember what an active selection is from the iOS guidelines section. So with these guides, let's go ahead and zoom in a bit, and I'm going to go, hit Control Plus and go in a little bit, and I want to create a active layer. So I'm going to hit Control Shift in, Command Shift in, and create a new layer and just call this active. Okay, and I'm just going to use my rectangle marquee tool to make sure that I get this exact selection. And of course we can zoom in real close, and I'm at 800, so I make sure I get this perfect. And you can see that this is just touching the red line but not going over it, just touching the blue line. And I'm going to drag all the way down to the right until I see my other guide and have the perfect selection, which I do. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this red color in. There we go. Now we have our active selection completely done. All we need to do is add text to this. Let's go ahead and create the last division line here. So I'm going to Command or Control D to deselect that. And I want to create a new guide, and I'm going to zoom out really quickly because it needs to be somewhere over here in the middle. So let's go to View, New Guide. We're going to create this last guide, and this one's going to be 921 pixels from the left side. So I'm going to hit OK, and there's my guide. Perfect. Let's zoom in on this bad boy. All right, and we're going to go to our tool or our shape and find the line tool, and we're going to be doing a 1 pixel line, which is already set to the weight, and the color fill is already set to the red we need. So we can just get over here on the right side of this line, and I'm going to drag down. And that doesn't look thick enough. So I want to open up my reference. I actually didn't check. Yeah, so the line actually, and if we zoom way in on this line, yep, it needs to be 3 pixels, no problem. Let me hide this layer. Let's change our weight to 3 pixels, so if you accidentally drew that, just hit Control Z to undo it. And now we can do the line in its proper width. There we go, and I'm just going to make sure that that's touching the top and touching the bottom. We can use our Move tool to drag this shape just to the left side of the blue line, and that's perfect. And I'm just going to rename this divider and try to keep everything, somewhat organized. So we have active divider. Let's go ahead and add some text here, which will be easy, and we're looking pretty good. I'm going to create a new text layer. Just drag it inside here. All right, and let's call this, I think it's day, week, and then, whoops, day, week, and month. Let me just double check the reference real quick. Day, week, month, year. Yeah, cool. So obviously it's way too big. Let's change the size of this. I'm going to go down to 40 pixels, and I'm also going to change this to from regular to light. And let's just center this, somewhat centered. And now instead of doing that again, I'm just going to duplicate it, Control or Command J. Now we have a copy. Let's rename this copy week. Now let's actually let's drag this over. You're going to notice when we drag this red new day that we just duplicated, it's going to go onto this red and we're going to lose it. That's fine. Let's grab our text tool, hover over where we know it is until it changes to this I, and I'm just going to select it, select day, and let's just change this color to white. There we go. And let's also change the text to week. Perfect. I'm just going to move this, make sure it's centered while holding shift. I can just do that, and actually it appears that it's a bit too high, which means the day is a bit too high too. So I'm going to grab hold shift and grab day and have both layers selected, and just while holding shift drag it down a little bit. And I'm going to turn off snap because it won't let me get right in the center. So with snap off, make sure we are right in the center. That looks pretty good. And I'm just going to duplicate the week, Control or Command J, drag it over, grab my text tool, and let's make sure we change this color back to red by just using the eyedropper tool. Week, and we'll call this a month. And let's go ahead and Control Command J, duplicate month, and do this one last time. And there we go. Grab our tool. Let's just change this to year. And I'm going to make sure this is centered really quickly. Boom. Let's grab month, make sure it's centered. And I'm going to go ahead and clear my guides so we can really see. Whoops. I'm going to go clear guides. And there we have it. Pretty cool. We have some segmented control here. Looks pretty good. Let's take a look at our reference. Yep. Pretty spot on. Obviously, there's going to be some discrepancies as far as having it exactly the same because the text that we're using isn't the official exact text that Apple uses in their apps, but it's close enough. It looks real good. If anything, we could probably change the week. Needs to be a bit lighter. It's not going to get any lighter than that, maybe smaller. But other than that, looks pretty good. We have that segmented control done. Let's keep moving. Okay, so now we need to create the actual content of this screen, the modules that track our different health stats, the first of which is our steps. So that rounded orange box that we see on our reference. And really quickly, I created two new guides. One is 12 vertical guides. One is 12 pixels from the left, which is exactly where this segmented control is. The other is 12 pixels from the right. So type in 1230 pixels when you create a new guide from window new or view new guide. So create those guides really quickly. We're going to use those to make sure this box is perfect. Now, I also know that the distance is not only 12 pixels here, it's 12 pixels from this gray line down. So if you recall, this entire section was 310 pixels down to the bottom of this gray line. So if we add 12 more to that, then we know that it's 322 pixels is where this box should start, somewhere right around here. And if I zoom in, that's going to be somewhere right around here. Let me zoom back out. So I'm going to create a new guide, and I'm just going to go 322 pixels. I'm adding 12 to 310 pixels. And let's go ahead and make this a horizontal guide. And there we see we have that exact 12 pixel difference right here, 12 pixel difference right here. We're going to get the perfect dimensions for our box. Let's go ahead, we'll do one more guide so we get the exact dimensions. And I'm going to go ahead, and I know that it is 871 pixels to the bottom of that. So go ahead, 871 pixels, make sure it's selected horizontal. And this is the square where our rounded box will go. So let's go ahead, and we're going to grab the rounded rectangle tool. And we're going to, let's make the radius a little bit bigger. It's definitely more circular in this. I'm going to go up to, let's do 20. We could even do 25 pixels, and I'm actually just going to test this really. That looks about right. Control Z. And let's create this rounded rectangle, make sure we're getting exact. I'm going to zoom in a bit, maybe into 300. Come up in this corner and make sure it just barely touches both, which it is, which is perfect. And I'm going to just come outside the document and drag it while holding this so we can get the whole thing. And sometimes when you're zoomed in this far, it it helps being perfect and seeing exactly where your guides are, but it also is kind of a pain in the butt when it comes to dragging these elements. So I'm going to make sure that these are perfectly touching the guides, and there we go. All right, I'm going to zoom back out to 100, and we have the makings of our first module. Well, we need to apply a gradient, and I do not know why. This is actually above the reference layer. I'm going to drag this all the way down, and I want to drag this. Actually, I'm going to put this above the top area folder, and I'm going to create an entire new group. So let's go to Layer, New, and create a group. Now we're going to call this Main Content, and this is going to be the center where all of our main content is. So OK, and I'm going to make sure that I drag this inside that folder. And I'm going to hide the top area folder so we don't get confused. And let's call this Module 1 Background. Well, we need to change the color now, and we're going to use a gradient to get that fade that we see in our reference here, this orange to red fade. So let's go ahead and hide this again. And I want to come over here on the text out here or anywhere out here and double click the layer. Oops. And we're going to pull up our layer style. Let's go over to gradient overlay and apply a gradient by clicking check. Now we need to change the gradient, so let's hover over the gradient color. And the white color, the right side of this gradient is going to be the top color. So if we just click this color, stop, and click the white, we can now come down to the color section here and change it. So go ahead and type in exactly what I type in, and this is going to be FF9551. And this is going to get us that orange color that it starts with. Well, we'll notice this is fading into black, which looks absolutely terrible. That's fine. If we come down here below and select the black color, we can change this color as well. We're going to get that red color that it fades into, and that is FF3D31 is the exact color. So let's select OK, and make sure that the angle is set to 90%, that you're getting that fade from top to bottom. And we have opacity at 100 and the scale at 100%, and select OK. Let's go ahead and look at the reference, make sure that we are on track, and we are, because it looks the exact same, because it is. We're using the same exact colors. So let's begin putting in some text in here and creating the rest of this module. Let's go ahead and start adding the text elements to the top of this module. And we're not going to be that exact when we lay down the text, because if we're laying out a guide for every single element, this could take all day, and I wanted to move a little bit quicker. So we're going to just guess with that, but we do need to do some guides as far as getting the lines correct. So we're going to go ahead and create a new guide again, and I want to do 454 pixels and make sure that this is a horizontal. This is just going to give us where our first line will go to separate some of the content. And then other than that, we're going to do two guides here on the left and right to show how far the line needs to go, or the space that needs to be between, the line and the edge of this box. So we are going to give that just a space of 48 pixels. So I want to do window new guide and do 48 pixels. And we're going to do this as a vertical this time, and really quickly. And we're going to do one more guide, and let's give this 1194 pixels, which is the opposite, or would be our entire canvas size minus 48 pixels. So we'll do 1194 pixels, and that will give us that. And there we can draw our line now, and this is actually just a 1 pixel line, and it's going to be a yellow line. So I'm going to zoom all the way in here and make sure that my line is touching. So let's go to the line tool, and I'm going to open up the reference really quickly. Yep, so our line's going to go right below this, and it's just going to be a 1 pixel line. So let's hide that, and let's just make sure that we have our weight set to 1 pixel, and that the fill color, if you come over to the select, mine's already on the color, but we need it to be FFF4FCB. So I'll type that out with you, FFFCB, and we have this light yellow color that we're going to be using. And I'm going to hide that. And let's just draw this just below our guides. And if it's above, don't worry, because you can just drag it below after. And I'm just going to drag this to the right. Whoops, went a bit far. And make sure that it's touching the right edge of this guide. And there we go. Now I just need to drag it 1 pixel down so that it's below the guide, and I can do that quite easily. And there we go. So we have the yellow line in place. Now we can go ahead and add some text. So let's just grab our text tool and start laying text down. And I'm just going to drag this out and make sure the color's white, which it is. And let's just type in flights climbed and I'm going to drag this a little bit wider so we can see it. Okay, and the size, make sure your size is 55 pixels, and this is going to be Helvetica, and I have it in the light form, which is fine. And we're going to keep it, yep, the spacing's right, so that looks about right. We're also going to add, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see. Okay, so we have flight climb. Now below this, we're going to have something, it's going to say daily average and then 11. We can look at our reference really quickly. Yep, so I'm just going to make sure that's down and to the left just a smidge. Okay, and let's go ahead and add the text to the right of this, sorry. And instead of creating new text layers, I like to duplicate, and I do this for one reason. If I duplicate flights climbed and then drag this to the right, I can just hold shift, and then I know that this is going to be exactly even as far as, you know, vertical, as far as it goes vertically. So instead of having to guess, you know, I know that it's the exact same because I'm dragging holding shift, which means it's not going to go up and down at all. And I'm just going to write 3 here. Okay, and it's going to say 3 floors, but they're going to be different fonts. So I'm going to type 3 and then lowercase floors. But we need to change the size of this, and we're just going to make the floors 45 pixels instead of 55 pixels. So change that to 3 floors. That looks good. And I'm just going to drag this to the right and right around there. That looks good. Now we need to create another text layer below the flights climbed, and I'm just going to drag this out. And I'm going to say daily average, and then do a colon, and then we're going to do 11, which is absolutely pathetic on my part. And we're going to change this size down to 30 pixels, but we're going to keep all the other settings. And then we're going to change the color to that same yellow color that we used earlier. So if we grab the foreground, just copy this color. I'm going to come back up top, and you'll notice that it's already up there, but you can go ahead and copy that in, and then we have that yellow color here now. And I'm just going to drag this up so it's directly under the flights climbed. I want to look at my reference real quick, see if that needs to be down just a tad. Okay, that looks good to me. And let's go ahead and duplicate this layer, Control or Command J, and let's drag it over. And you guys know why I like to do that. And let's go ahead and change this text so it says today. All right, and I'm just going to drag this over so you know, it's even with the floors. Perfect. Oops. And for some reason it seems to be moving on me, so I'm just going to make sure, get this where I want it, and I'm going to duplicate this today one more time, Control Command J, and we're just going to drag this down right below the blue line. And we're going to add a, I'm sorry, it keeps moving on me. It's probably my unsteady hands today. And let's just change this to 22. And I'm going to select the move tool and drag this to the right and make sure it is right along the right edge as well. So let's grab all these layers that we just created all the way down to shape 1, which is our line. And let's just rename this yellow line so we know exactly what it is. And we're going to grab all of this and make sure that you're holding select from the bottom to the top, and let's just make a new group out of this so we get a bit more organized. Now we'll call this group flight, we'll call it flights climbed top content. Get descriptive with it so you know exactly what you're talking about, and that's fine. You will notice that none of those actually went in there. That's okay. I'm just going to grab 22 and then go down to the yellow line and hit shift and make sure that those are actually dragged into this folder. There we go. If we hide the folder, it all disappears. And I'm going to make sure that I drag this down into the main content just above the module. There we go. So now if I close main content, we're a bit more organized. We have it sectioned off into our top area and our main content for now. So let's continue moving on and finishing this up. Okay, before we keep going, I did notice that the floors, 3 floors today and the 22 over here need to be touching this right guide. So let's go ahead and open up our main content and then open up our right climb to top content. I'm just going to grab 22. Then I'm going to hold Control and grab Today. And then I'm going to hold Control and grab 3 floors. So that'll grab only the layers that we hit Control Select. And I'm just going to drag all 3 of these while holding Shift to the right. Make sure they are right up against there. And appears the 22 needs to go by itself a little bit. And that's about right. There we go. So now that those are touching, I want to close this folder really quickly and then go back up and open the reference layer. You'll notice that we have to do another dotted line, another solid line, and then these numbers. And we're going to do those 3 things, and then we'll get into this little, the flights climbed actual analytics. So let's zoom in really quickly, and I'm going to hit Control plus and zoom way in. You'll notice that this is a light yellow dotted line. Well, if we go in all the way, and I'm going to go into 3200 pixels, you'll notice that it is 6 pixels in width and only 1 pixel in height, and then there's a 3 pixel space. So let's keep that in mind. We're going to create this exact same line. So I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to hide this reference. Okay, and let's go ahead and create a new guide, and we're going to put it exactly where that last line was, and I happen to have written that down. So let's go down 635 pixels, and we're going to make sure that this is a horizontal guide. Excuse me, and select OK. And that's where this dotted line is going to go. And before we add this, let's go ahead and add one more guide, and that's going to be the guide for the line below this, the other solid line. And this one's going to be 771 pixels down. And there we have the guide for our second line. So let's go in here, and remember how I said it was 6 pixels by 1 pixel? Well, I'm going to zoom way in here on this guide that we just dropped down. You know what? I'm going to go even further. I'm going to go all the way into 3200, and I'm right at the intersection where this line needs to start. And I'm going to grab my line tool and make sure the weight is selected to 1. And I'm going to grab the yellow color that we need. So let's get the color picker, and let's change this color to FFC47C. And this is going to be this light orange yellowish color, and this is going to be the color of our line. Oops. Okay. And I'm just going to select fill. All right, so let's draw this and make sure the weight is 1 pixel. And I want this to, I want this to be right here. So just select right at the bottom of the pixel that you want it on. And I'm going to drag this 4, 5, 6 pixels to the side. So I have 6 pixels by 1 pixel. Awesome. So I'm just going to rename this shape, and I'm going to call this dash, because this is a dash line. So we remember that we need a 3 pixel space in between these. Well, if we just Control or Command J, duplicate dash, let's grab our move tool, and while we're holding shift, we have to be holding shift, let's just drag over 1 space, 2 space, and 3 pixels in between. That's awesome. So let's copy dash copy, and let's do that exact same thing. Make sure that we have 3 pixels in between, and let's do this a few more times. So I'm going to do it once. Make sure there's 3 pixels, and we are pixel perfect right now, and 3. So now that we've done that, you can imagine we're zoomed in at 3200. If we zoom out, look how far we would have to go, and this is just a tiny section. Well, there are different ways we could have done this. We could have created a new brush preset, and from there we could have, drawn this individual shape right here, created a brush preset, changed the spacing settings, and used a brush tool. But I like to do this just to make sure that this is absolutely perfect. It's what the screen we're copying looks exactly like. And instead of just doing that every time, I want you to grab dash, the first layer, and then scroll up to the last copy we made, dash copy 5, and hold shift and select all of these. And we're simply going to right click and click merge shapes. Now these are all going to be one shape, and I'm going to rename this dash again. And if we duplicate this now, Control J, we can now drag this to the side and do all those at once, and you'll see I still have that 3 pixel space. And I'm just gonna, do that again. and we have the 3 pixel space, and I'm just going to do that one more time. Make sure I get the 3 pixel space, and we can zoom out again, and from here I'm just going to do exactly what I did. Dash, hold shift, grab the last copy. Let's merge these shapes and let's call it dash, and you know the drill. I'm going to zoom out even further, and I'm just going to command control copy this and drag it to the right. I'm actually going to zoom back in really quickly to make sure that I have the correct spacing. There's the correct space, and all I have to do is merge these 2 layers. Let's merge the shapes. Let's zoom out, and you can see like now we still need to do 3 of those, so I'm just going to Control J, zoom in, drag this all the way down, drive the appropriate space, 3 pixels. I'm going to do it one more time. Merge shapes, Control J, and that ought to be enough. So I'm going to drag this holding shift all the way down and make sure I have the correct spacing. There it is. And I'm just going to control copy this one more time. Nope, it's not quite gonna get us there. We're close, but no cigar. And let's do one more. Alrighty. Oops. I'm just going to make sure that I have this lined up properly. Okay, so we can now merge all these dashes, and that was kind of a long-winded way of doing it. And I understand that, but I also want you to understand there's no one way to do things. And let me just merge these shapes. There's no one way to, get that dotted line. You could have done it a bunch of different ways. There's more efficient ways, there's less efficient ways. I wanted to make sure that we had the exact correct spacing and that this was going to be, perfect. So I do want to quickly zoom in here, and I'm just going to delete the right side of this. So let's rename this dash, and with that layer selected, let's grab our rectangular marquee tool, and let's just grab this line right here. Oops. And I'm going to make sure we rasterize this layer. There we go. Now we can just delete that, and we have our dotted line. So kind of a long-winded way of doing it, but we have the perfect exact same spaced and size dotted line that the actual screen has. So let's come down here and just create a solid line this time. No dots. It'll make things a lot easier. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to get right here on the corner, make sure I'm selected, and then we can drag all the way down, and obviously I'm zoomed way in, so it's going to take a second. Alright, and I'm going to make sure I hold shift and make sure this is a straight line, and it's perfectly straight. So if we zoom in even further, let's make sure that we are touching the line, and I'm 1 pixel above the guide, so I'm just going to drag it down. There, now I'm in the perfect spot, and we need to change the color of this line, so I'm just going to double click this shape that we just drew and select color overlay, and this line color is going to be, just type this in, FF986C, and it's this orangish color, and let's select OK and OK. And now we can finally just put in a little bit of text and then draw the analytics to this. So below this, we're going to put in the text on the calendar. And let's start by grabbing our text tool. And let's just drag this out. And I'm going to do December 1st. Okay. And let's change this color. So I want you to highlight this text. And we're going to grab the color tool. And we're going to do FFBEAC. FFBEAC, and it's going to give us this peach color, which is the color in the app. So now that we have that selected, I want to do something really quickly, and I want to zoom out a little bit, and I want to pull out the reference really quickly. And what we're going to do, whoops, I apologize. And what we're going to do is use our guide to get the very center of each of these circles, because these circles line up exactly with these numbers. So if we just grab our guide out here, let's just drag it out, put it right there in the center, and we're going to do that for all of these. So I'm going to do that again, get pretty much right in the center. Let's do that for each circle. So I'm going to grab this one, make sure I'm right in the center, and you'll notice that these are lining up with these numbers, which is why we're doing this. And let's grab this one, pretty much in the center. You know, it doesn't have to be too exact. And I'm just going to get the last couple. That looks fine. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. Just make sure you're right around the center so we know where to put these numbers. And the last one, just grab this guide. Boom. All right, so now we can see where our numbers need to go. And I'm going to really quickly drag December 1st above so I can get started. Let's drag this so it's over this December 1st. And we can hide this layer. And from here, we know where to put our numbers. So let's go ahead and duplicate December 1st. I'm going to hover over it and change it to a 2. And then grab my move tool, and while holding shift, just drag this and make sure it's centered on that line. And we'll do that again. Control J, duplicate the layer. And let's change this to a 3. And you guys can guess what we're going to do next. Let's duplicate this layer. And let's keep going down the line. Let's do 4 here. So grab your text tool, make it a 4. Control J, Command J, duplicate. Oops. Do it right about there. Change it to a 5. Duplicate. 2 more. Let's just do this really quickly. Okay, we have our 6. And let's do the last one. Control J. And we have a 7. So obviously some of this is a bit repetitive, but it's what you have to do if you want to recreate each individual element. And then I do recall there was one other letter number right here. I'm going to duplicate this 7 really quickly. Let's do Control J, and I'm going to drag this up here. And really quickly, let's look at our reference. Yeah, there's a 3 right here. So let's change the 7 to a 3 really quickly. And I'm just going to drag this right up here and make sure it's, you know, where it needs to be. I can go ahead, rehide this layer. And now I'm going to grab all of these letters these numbers that we just created and hold shift to select them all. Now let's right click. And I want to make a group out of this. So I'm actually going to come up to Layer, New, Group from Layers. And let's just call this numbers/date. Okay, so we now have that all in its folder. Let's drag this down and put it back in our main content so that we can have everything organized. And let's zoom out. Okay, perfect. So we have a bunch of guides on the page. That's okay. We'll hide that at the end, but for now, it's coming along very well. It'll actually speed up the other 2 modules by having all this put together, and we can finally create the analytical part of these flights climbed, which is actually going to be the most fun, the coolest part to create and see come to life. All right, it's time to do the analytics of this screen. So let's start by figuring out where we need to put everything. So I want to first create a new layer, and we're just going to call this layer, you know, temp, and this is going to be a temporary layer. And let's make sure that we drag this above the reference layer, and we're going to now reopen the reference layer so that we can see this. And let's just zoom into around 300%. I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool. So make sure your brush tool is selected. Make the size around 5 pixels, and I just have the this hard circle selected. So with those configured, and I just grabbed, grab any color, something that'll stand out. I just grabbed a green so we could see it. I'm going to just mark in the side of each one of these circles, and I'm doing this so we know exactly where to put our circles. So I'm just going to do that for each one. There we go. There we go. All right, let's do that for the last one. This doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so now we can hide this reference layer. We know exactly where we need to make our circles, so let's go ahead and make them. So I'm going to zoom in and we can place this after, it doesn't really matter. And let's go ahead and just grab our ellipse tool and make sure the ellipse of the shapes tool is selected, and we're just going to drag out a circle. So while holding shift, I want you to drag out a circle and make sure that it is 16 by 16 pixels, and I'm just going to make it white, so make sure the foreground color is white. Now with this shape, I'm going to rename it circle. We can go ahead and hover over the thumbnail down here and hold control, and let's go ahead and select this layer, and it's going to get the marching ants around, and we're just going to modify this and contract it so we can get that hollowed out circle, and we're going to contract it by 4 pixels. Perfect. And let's go ahead and delete, but before we do that, we need to make sure that we rasterize this layer. So rasterize this shape, and let's go ahead and boom. There we go. So we have our circle, and I'm going to hit Control or Command D to deselect and just move this to the appropriate place, which is right here with this green circle in the center. And I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this circle layer and do that and drag it to each one of the green circles. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's drag a new one down. And I'm just copying each one of these and dragging them. So let's do it again. Back up to this green circle. And let's do it twice more. Alrighty. And let's do it 3 more times apparently. So we'll do it for the 6th day. And one last one. Oops. Okay. So there we go. Now we have our circles in place, and we can zoom out, meaning we no longer need this temporary layer with the green circle. So I'm just going to select that and hit delete. And I'm also going to merge all these circles. I'm going to select merge layers. Excuse me, and I'm just going to call these circles. All right, and now we need to connect these with a line. So we're going to zoom back in. Oops. Sure I have my tool selected, and I'm going to hit Control plus to zoom in, and I'm going to hit step backwards. Yeah, I'm not sure what I did, but something I did distorted all those. So we should have all our circles. They're looking good. I'm going to zoom in a bit, and I'm going to go select my line tool. So grab the line tool. Let's keep our fill as white, and I want you to make sure that your weight is 3 pixels. And we're just going to come right here in the center of this circle, select anywhere, and just drag this line to this center of this circle so it looks like it's coming in and touching. And we're just going to drop that, and it's going to connect those. And we're going to do the same thing for all of these. So let's connect all of these circles. And you can see what I'm doing. It's pretty easy. Just using my line tool, drawing it to and from. There we go. Let's grab it again. And I'm going to do the last one. And let's zoom out and take a look. Oh, we need one more. Keep forgetting about this 7th day. All right. There we go. Now we can zoom out. Have a little bit of analytics going. It's also quite clustered, so we won't worry about that for now. Our screen's come together. It looks pretty good. We just need to create the gradient underneath this, and we'll do that in the next section. All right, I would like to turn this whole white analytics line into one layer. So I'm just going to grab the top shape 7 all the way down through shape 2 in circles, and just going to grab them all. And I'm going to right click and select merge layers so we have one, and I'm just going to call this analytics. Okay, and there, now we're a bit more organized. We have this all in one layer. So now we're going to create the color underneath, and to start I want to hit Control Shift in or Command Shift in or layer new, and let's create a new layer, and I'm going to call this fade. Sort of fades underneath. And what we're going to do is grab our rectangle marquee tool, and I want to zoom in just a little bit to 300. And we're going to start right here in this corner where we have the line, our solid line above December. And this is where this fade's going to end. And we're just going to drag up right through the center of this dot. And we're going to make sure it stops right below the center of the top dot, which is this dot right here. And I just want to drag all the way over. And we're going to stop right here. And it really doesn't matter how high you do it because we're going to delete that content anyways. So let's just make sure that we're in the center of this last one. We're touching this line here, and we have this this rectangle here. And we're going to go ahead and fill this with just a random color. And I'm just going to grab, like a blue, and I'm going to fill this in. Now, you'll obviously, this made that look terrible. Well, don't worry, that's okay. We're going to fix that. So let's hit Control or Command D. And I want to drag the analytics above the fade section. And now we're going to use our pen tool to get only the stuff we want. So if we zoom in and grab our pen tool, which is right here. So with this selected, I want you to start right here on the inside of the circle where the blue sort of runs through. And we're going to just chop this out. So I want you to put this first marker right here, and we're going to make sure that it runs all the way up, and make sure that it stays through the white the entire way. So mine runs all the way up and through, and then I'm just going to draw 2 lines here. Make sure it stays. So your objective here is to stay in the white, and if you need to zoom in a little bit closer to make sure it does that, you can do that. So I'm just going to draw another line that connects all the way down here, and you can see, if you look closely, this line runs through the white, and I'm going to do that through all of these white lines. And I'm going to hit Control Z and make sure, yep, straight through the white line, perfect. And let's do it again. And we're making sure that this goes all the way through the white line. Now we got to kind of maneuver around this circle, and I'm just going to use straight lines and wiggle around it. There we go. And we can easily go through. Whoops, I'm going to redo that draw. And I'm just going to wiggle through this circle again. And we're going to our last one, and let's just cut it off right there. Awesome. So from here, I'm just going to zoom out, and I'm going to finish. I'm going to link this back together by just coming up out here in the orange all the way back here, and we're just going to go all around this blue. Make sure you go around the outside, and if we zoom in, we see our first one. We can just reconnect those. So essentially, I just drew a shape that goes all the way through the white and above. So if I make this selection with the pen tool and inside here, I'm just going to right click and select Make Selection and hit OK. I have all the content above my analytics line. So I could just select the fade, this blue layer that we created, and I'm just going to hit Delete. And that's awesome. So now we have a layer under here, the exact size that we need for this layer. And we can easily just change the color now and create that gradient. So let's hit Control or Command D, deselect, and let's grab this fade, and I'm just going to double click. And before we actually do that, let's go in and delete the inside of those circles. Now, you know what, they're fine. Let's just go ahead and create the fade. So I'm going to double click the fade, and I'm going to give this a gradient. Yikes, looks terrible again. Don't worry, we will fix that. Let's go ahead and select a gradient, and we're going to keep this at 90 degrees. And for the top color, we're going to select the white here, select the white again, and change this color. And I want you to type FFC 272. And this is going to give us that light orange that runs along the top. And I'm going to select OK. And now we need to change this black color. So select that, and let's change this color. And this one's going to be FF4 D37. Okay, so wow, you can see that fade already, which is awesome. And you know, we can mess around with this a little bit. It's usually a little bit stronger at the top, so I'm just going to drag this orange color, the second one, and just drag it in a little bit like this. And you'll see that this fade will move up a little bit, so you can play around with it. To me, you know, it looks fine. If we zoom out, yeah, it looks pretty dang good. we've essentially just created that entire module. We created that little fade underneath, which looks awesome. Let's go ahead and remove the guide. So I'm going to go to View and Clear Guide so we can see this thing. Okay, so we'll notice a couple problems, but that's fine. That's why we removed the guide so we can see these. Let's grab our fade and our analytics layers, and we're going to drag these. Well, first let's open up the main content, and we're just going to make sure that we're under all these lines. So we're going to go right below the right climb top content folder, but just above the module 1 background. So with these two layers selected, I'm just going to drag down, go in between those two layers. There, now my dotted lines across, my straight lines here, and we have this beautiful analytics screen that looks exactly like the actual one. And let's just pull up our reference. Holy cow, that's pretty cool that we just replicated that. Looks almost the exact same. If anything, this fades a little bit further. You can kind of see this line here. Well, we can actually take care of that. Let's just go back in here. Let's go back into our fade gradient, and I'm just going to open this up, and I'm going to drag this back. And you see when I do this, look, I want you to look right here along the left side, and you can see this line. If I were to drag this forward, that line's going to fade just like that. Well, this line's actually more apparent than I thought, so I'm just going to keep it like that and select OK, and there we go. Now we're a lot closer to this reference that we've been building towards. Almost, probably the exact same. So very good, very cool. Now we can just sort of duplicate this and drag it down and make some edits to the last sections of this screen. All right, so let's do a bit of organizing, and then we're going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. So I'm just going to close my main content. There we go. We have our top area separated. All right, so we can actually rename this layer. We'll do this flights climbed. All right, and we're just going to duplicate this entire folder. So while flights climbed is selected, I'm going to hit Control or Command J, and let's go ahead and drag this new layer with the Move tool down. So I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to come down here. Now I'm going to zoom in really quickly, and I'm going to zoom all the way in to 3200. And I'm just going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There. I just wanted to make sure that I had a 12 pixel space, which is exactly how far we need in between. And one more time, let's go ahead and duplicate this layer, and we're going to drag it down. We're going to do 3 separate. So let me just zoom in real quick, make sure that I have 12 pixels in between. So that's 16, so I need to go up 4 pixels. There we go. So I now have my 3, and I'm just going to zoom all the way back out. I have my 3 sections. That's great. Let's go ahead and we're going to change the second one, and I'm going to call it Sleep Analysis. Now I don't have any data hooked up to this, so it's just going to be an empty. It's just going to be empty, sorry. So what we can do is start removing some stuff. Oops, I apologize. And I want to make sure that I have, let's go ahead and close this one and make sure I have Sleep Analysis selected. There we go. And we can go ahead, we can remove the dashed line. So I'm just going to delete this, and we're going to get rid of everything we don't need. And that happens to be the analytics. We're not going to have any analytics, so let's delete that, and we're going to delete the fade as well. Now other than that, we need to delete the 22. So let's go ahead and select the top content. I'm going to delete 22. I'm going to delete the today, and from here, we're just going to change the content. We also have 3 down here, and I'm going to change that 3 if I can find it. And let me just go ahead and grab my text tool because I'm not sure how to find that. And there's the 3. So I'm just going to delete that. There we go. So now we are down to the bones of this section. So we need to change some stuff. Let's go back into so we're in our sleep analysis folder. Well, let's go ahead and change the module background color. and we need to change this to a blue. So let's grab this gradient and let's select the orange-red gradient that we created earlier, and we're going to change the top color, and it's this orange. Let's change this, and we're just going to type in the direct hex value. This is going to be 459 5FE. Alright, let me just put my phone on silent, I apologize. And we're going to select OK, and now let's change the bottom color from this red, and we're going to put this one directly into, and this is going to be 023E, so 023E 99. And we have that darker blue. So now we're fading down to this blue, and that's the color for the sleep analysis. We just need to change some text, and obviously this 3 floors needs to go. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to highlight it. Well, first I'm going to delete the floors, and then I'm going to grab this 3, and we're just going to do 2 dashes, just like that. And then I'm going to grab my move tool and move this over to the edge so it's lined up with the line. And we're going to do similar for the daily average. Let's go ahead and we're going to change the text here. And this is going to be daily average, but we're going to take this 11 and we're going to make it a dash dash as well, since we don't have any information here. And I want to change this line. So we have this yellow line is what it's called, the layer. Let's double click this line and let's grab our color overlay and let's just select this. And instead of having it gray, I'm going to give it a custom color. And this custom color, let's just give this a hex value of 6AFFFF. So 4F, 6A, 4Fs, and it's going to be this light blue color, which is what we want. And then we need to change the color of all of these text elements down here and this line. So I'm going to, first of all, find the line. And if I recall, it's up here. It should not be. It's this shape 1. So let's rename this too, and we're going to call this bottom line. And I'm going to drag this down just so it's inside this folder where we want it. And let's go ahead and change this cover overlay. So let's click the cover overlay, and we're going to give this a color. And this one's going to be 1898FF. And this is going to be like a darker blue color. And there we go. So we have our lines. The last thing we need to change is these colors of the December 1st through the 7th. And I'm going to go ahead and select December 1st so it takes me straight to this folder. Now I do not feel like changing the color of each individual one of these. So with December 1st selected, let's just go up to 7 and hit Shift and select all these layers. And I'm going to just merge these layers and make them one, but we could also just, let's merge these layers. So first, before we can merge them, we have to rasterize this type. So let's rasterize the type. All right, now we can merge the layers, and it's, I'm just going to call, whoops, I'm going to rename this, call it numbers, and I'm going to double click it, select color overlay, grab this tool, and let's give these a custom number as well. And these are going to be 86C 4FF, and it's a light blue. There we go. And the last thing we need to add is just some text here that says no content in the center. So let's just grab our horizontal text tool and let's drag this bad boy out. I'm just going to write no content. And let's highlight this and change the color on the side. So the color of this one is going to be A2E 8FF. And it's going to be a nice light blue. And we're also going to make this a lot bigger. Let's change this from 30 pixels, which I currently have it set to 80 pixels, and it's going to be light. And I'm just going to drag this into the center, make sure it's centered somewhat. Okay, there we go. And we now have no content. Well, that's all right. Let's go ahead and minimize the sleep analysis layer. We just have this one last layer to change. We'll just change the text here. We're not going to redo the analytics. Then we'll work on the bottom and then wrap up this screen. All right, moving right along. Really quickly, I'm going to. I noticed I didn't change the flights climbed up here. This needs to be sleep analysis, and I'm just going to change that. And then I also noticed I wrote no content here, and this needs to be no data. I'm going to double click that. No data. There we go. and I'm just going to make sure I have that no data centered. I'm just going to drag that to the center. There we go. Alright, and I have this flights climbed layer, this bottom section that we need to change, and all we really need to do is change the text here for all this stuff at the top. And then I know I said we weren't going to change the analytics part, the actual tracking, but I actually decided I want to do that as a challenge. I want you guys just to take this screenshot and do what we did up here with flights climbed and recreate this different pattern here, and do the exact same thing we did for the flights climb pattern, and I want you guys to do that, and then I'm just going to quickly, almost speedily go through it so that you guys can do that. Before that though, let's go ahead really quickly and let's change the information, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and let's just change our information here so it matches our screenshot. So let's just grab our text tool and start changing things. This is going to be walking plus running, and I need to drag this a bit wider so we can see it. There we go. And the daily average is going to be 1.68. So I'm just going to change this to 0.68. There we go. And now obviously we need to change this. So let's grab our text tool again. Let's go to floors. All right. And I'm going to change, first of all, I'm going to delete this 3. And now, so we have this same size, I'm going to do 1.12, oops, 1.12. We'll do MI for miles, and I'm just going to make sure that's dragged all the way out to the right. And then we'll keep today the same, and today I'm going to do 2.91, and grab our move tool, make sure this is just along the right edge there. Perfect, and we just need to change this bottom number here on the 3. And let's change that to 1.09, and grab our move tool, make sure it is centered along the right side. There we go. And there we go. So we have this new information in place. We just need to change up the analytics screen. So I want you guys to pause. I'm going to do the same. Go ahead and pause this really quickly, and then go for it. Try to create this really quickly, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you guys how I do it really quickly, and it's going to be the same thing we did earlier. Okay, so I hope you guys were able to do that. I'm going to do it right now, and I'm going to use the reference to get the circles we need. But before I do that, I'm going to minimize some of this stuff, and I want to get organized. So let's make sure we're in flight. Let's change the flight climb copy folder, and I'm just going to call this walking plus running, because that's the actual folder. All right, now let's go ahead. We're going to open this up. The numbers and dates are fine. The shape is fine. Everything is pretty good. So we need to just get to our content. So let's find our analytics and our fade, and we're going to delete both of these. Let's delete both of those. All right, that's fine. And let's get our reference out. So this is the reference we need. Let's go ahead and do what we did earlier. We're going to grab a new layer, and we're just going to call this temp for temporary, and we're going to draw some circles. So I'm going to do this really quickly. Let me grab my brush tool, make sure it's on 5, blue, that's fine, boom, boom. And you can't see this right now because my temporary layer is below my other layer, but it's okay, we'll be able to see it. And I'm just going to select inside all of these circles, and that is done. I'm going to hide my reference layer. I have all of my circles now. Let's go ahead, zoom in. I'm going to create the first one. So I'm going to use my, let's use the shape tool, and I'm going to grab the ellipse tool. And yes, I'm going fast right now, but that's because we've already done this, and this was a challenge. I'm going to grade it 16 by 16. That's not the white color. Let's change the color overlay to white. I forgot to select it as a foreground color. And I'm going to select, oops, I'm going to grab this ellipse control and click the thumbnail so I have the selection. Let's come up here to select, modify, contract, and we're going to contract it by 4 pixels, which it already is. And then I want to rasterize this layer type. So rasterize shape, delete. There we have our nice little white circle. I'm going to Control D, deselect, and move this over the circle. And you guys know the drill. Let's copy that again. Control J, and I'm going to move this up here to the second circle. Pretty good. Control J. Let's keep moving. Drag this one down. Okay, Control J. Moving right along. Control J. You guys might be wondering why I'm saying Control J and I'm on a Mac. Well, I switch my hotkeys around, so I use the Windows hotkeys, and I'm going to do this one last time. Okay, there we go. So have all our circles. That was easy. Let's go ahead. We can delete the temporary layer that we created. So I'm going to grab temp, select delete, get rid of those blue lines, and I'm going to use the line tool to connect all these. So with the line tool selected, I'm going to zoom back into 300%, and I'm just going to quickly, with a weight of 3 pixels and a fill of white, make sure the fill color is white, we're just going to drag these out. There's the first, there's the second, there's the third, and I'm obviously not being perfect about this, and when you're designing, you know, an app for something you're creating and you're really passionate about it, and you're not just recreating something like this, obviously you're going to take a lot of care and consideration into what you're doing. So there we go. There's my last little line that I've connected. I'm going to connect all of these shapes. So I'm going to grab shape 6. What is shape 5 here? All right, so let's go down to shape 2. And I'm going to grab all the way up through my very first circle, and I'm going to merge all these layers so that they're in one, and I'm just going to call this analytics again. And there we go, we have our analytics layer. We just need to create the fade layer, so I'm going to Control Shift N, and I'm going to call the fade layer, and let's create that. Alright, perfect, and let's drag the analytics on top of the fade. And let's grab our rectangle marquee tool, and I'm going to drag a guide really quickly right here in the center so we know where to start this, and let's drag another guide onto the outside of this one. Perfect. So let's go ahead, use our rectangle marquee tool, and once again, I'm not being exact. I just want this to be, you know, somewhat. There we go. Let's make sure it's touching the right guide and that it's just below this top left. And there we go. Let's fill this in with the foreground color, which is a blue. And you'll see that that actually filled everything in below, which is pretty cool. So, but you see it's all distorted. That's definitely not what we want. So I want to fill in this entire layer, and I thought I had dragged fade above. So let's make sure fade is above analytics actually, and fill this so it's on top. And then we're going to do the same thing we did last time. Now that this is filled, let's Command D to deselect, and let's drag analytics above now. Now we can zoom in and make sure everything's precise. Let's grab our pen tool, and let's just go through all of these white lines again and make sure we're going directly through these. And I am. Remember, we're using our pen tool here, and we're making sure that we don't touch any blue. Think of it as a game, and the game is to follow the white line and never touch any of the blue. All right, and we have that last one, and I'm just going to zoom out and reconnect these lines. Oops, went a bit far, and I'm just going to reconnect these lines by I'm just going to move this out of here. I'm going to go around the outside at the top and just reconnect here at the very beginning starting point. And let's go ahead, make this selection, select OK. And we're going to move back to our fade layer and select delete. Boom! Gosh, that looks good. Let's Control Command D, grab our fade layer and double click it so we can give it that same gradient that we gave it earlier. And I'm going to just grab this color, and I'm trying to remember what those colors were. I believe. Let me go back to the reference really quickly and grab this color, and we can just use our pen tool, grab this first color, and I'm just going to copy it, this nice light orange, hide my reference, go back down to my fade layer and double click the gradient. Let's change this. The white layer, the top layer, we're going to change it to that color we just copied. Alright, and then we can just grab our black layer, and instead of getting that color, we can just come out here in this orange that it fades down to. We know it's fading from this color eventually down to this color, so let's just select right here, and there's that fade. It's going to fade down into that nice little color there. And that's probably not quite right, so let's go ahead, lighten that up just a bit, and that's so we can see the outside. And I'm just going to zoom out. I'm going to clear these guides so we can have a look at almost the final product. Other than this, the screen's done other than the tab bar along the bottom. So let's clear these guides, and voila, that looks awesome. Really good stuff there. We're actually learning how to create the exact layout of some pretty cool iOS 8 apps. So pat yourself on the back if you just made it through that, and if you were able to recreate this exact analytics screen. Good job. Okay, so we've done the entire screen. All we have is this tab bar at the bottom, and it'd probably be a little bit overkill to go through and create all these tabs and take a long time. So I'm just going to pick one, and we're just going to do this medical ID icon out here on the right. And I'm only doing this because I want to show you how I would go about creating this. And there's, like I said, a ton of different ways you can do a ton of different things in Photoshop. So let's just go ahead and create this little like rescue symbol, I don't know, medical ID icon really quickly. Oops. And I'm going to just hide from my reference layer, and I'm going to just zoom in here, and we're going to make this, let's just randomly do this in here somewhere. And the first thing I'm going to do is create one of those little edges. And I'm going to grab my rectangle marquee tool. Actually, no, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw out a shape. And I'm going to make this shape really small. I'm going to do 29 pixels in height. So I did mine 3 pixels in width by 29 pixels in height. And I'm going to zoom in even further. I'm going to go into 1600 so we can, well, if we go into 3200 we can see exact pixels. So let's just go all the way in. And from here I'm going to do another shape. And I'm just going to draw this, and you can see how it'll add on here. We can see right in here. I'm going to do 3 pixels in height this time, but I'm just going to go over only 9 pixels. And then I'm going to repeat this step going down. So I'm going to come down here to 29 pixels with 3 pixels in width. And we've just essentially created one of those little edges on the icon that we're going to be making. Well, instead of doing that every single time, we can just go ahead and let's merge all 3 of these rectangles. And we can just merge these shapes. So we now have just one, and I'm just going to call this top. So we can just duplicate this and start dragging it around. So I'm just going to hit Control or Command J for top. It's going to create a copy of this. And I want to rotate this. So if you notice with that top copy selected, if we hover right over here on one of the corners, you'll get these double arrows that are kind of curved. Well, let's just hold that and drag down. And if you do it around 60%, which is what we want, and hit Shift, it's just going to automatically go to 60%. The same with 50 or 45%, and the same with 90. So hold Shift and make sure you're on 60%. And I'm just going to grab my Move tool. I'm going to apply that change, and I'm simply just going to drag this little edge right here so it's, touching this edge, and we can come back and get pixel perfect and delete these little pixels if we want. But for now that's fine, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to copy that. So Control or Command J, copy that, and I'm going to rotate this one down as well. This time we're going to do 60 degrees again. So hold Shift, and I'm going to grab my Move tool, apply the move, and let's drag this down and make sure it's touching this edge. And there we go. Alright, so instead of doing that over and over again, I have these sides right here. Well, I can just move that to the left side, and I'm going to zoom out once. To do that, let's grab the 2 layers we just created, this top copy 2 and this top copy 1, and I'm just going to hold Shift and grab them both. Right click, and I'm going to merge these 2 shapes together so that now they are one shape. And let's go ahead and duplicate this shape instead. So I'm going to hit Control or Command J. And now if we grab this center square here with our layer selected, we can hold Shift and drag this layer all the way out here and create the exact opposite. So just let it go anywhere. It doesn't matter, because we could come up here and we're just going to type in -100% for the width and select our Move tool, apply the transformation, and while holding Shift, drag this out and make sure it is lined up nice and perfectly. That's fine. We obviously need to do the same for this this top shape. So let's just grab the top layer and we're going to copy it or duplicate it. And I'm just going to drag this top layer all the way down to get the opposite. And I'm going to make sure that my height this time is -100%, and it is. Let's grab the Move tool, apply, drag right on down here, and there we go. Now obviously, let's go up a little bit. Now obviously we got some pixels in here, so what you could do is grab your eraser. We're zoomed in so far that you could honestly, just use our eraser. At first I want to grab all of these layers, so top all the way to top copy 3, and I'm going to put these into one shape. So I'm going to merge the shapes. Call this, I'm just going to call it star just because it looks like a star. I know it's not. Alright, and then I'm going to go to Layer, Rasterize, and I'm going to rasterize this shape. Now with my eraser tool selected out here, I'm going to change this down to 1 pixel. We're going to be using a 1 pixel eraser. And I'm just going to nice and steady come in here and erase any stray pixels that we have. Alright. And I'm getting straight lines here, so you can come in and do this stuff and get really precise. Look at that. Now I don't have any fading here, so we're gonna get truly pixel perfect stuff here. I'm just gonna do it so this is the same on the side. Alright, so we can zoom out here. Let's go ahead and change this to give this whole thing a color overlay. Let's give it a nice lightish gray. Select OK, and let's see how this looks. I'm just going to grab this star, drag it next to this one. Wow, so pretty spot on actually. If we click the color overlay and select this color, we're almost exactly, I want to pull this over here and see. Yeah, so pretty amazing there. That's how I would go about recreating that, and it looks pretty good. It looks the exact same, and we were just zoomed in at 3200%. So never in a million years would you be able to tell the difference in these two. And we went in there, we made it pretty pixel perfect. So that's how I'd go about recreating these icons. And you can use your shapes and your different tools that I've given you, and the different strategies we've used to accomplish different stuff. So if you want to, go ahead, recreate this tab bar, do all of these. I actually encourage it. I think it's great to practice, and mimicry is the ultimate form of mimicry in Photoshop is the ultimate form of learning, I guess I was trying to say, in my opinion. Copying stuff and recreating stuff, just going through the steps and recreating apps that already exist really gives you a great understanding of how to use all the different tools, and that's the preferred way that I like to learn. So good job. We're pretty much done with this app, but you all who stuck through it did a great job, and you just made something really cool.